Imagine this, the year is 1750. You step out of a carriage onto the Pont Neuf, the most famous bridge in Europe. The air hits you like a wall, thick, heavy, sour with horse urine, rotting vegetables, open sewers, and the faint metallic scent of blood from nearby butchers. On one side, powdered aristocrats in silk coats and enormous panniers laugh and flirt, their faces painted white, beauty spots perfectly placed. On the other, a barefoot boy with ribs showing fights over a crust of 2-day-old bread that fell into the mud. This moment, this exact contrast, is Paris in the mid-1700s, the most brilliant, most dangerous, most beautiful, and most miserable city on the planet. The birthplace of the Enlightenment, where ideas of liberty and equality were born, and the powder keg where a century of inequality would finally explode into the most violent revolution the world had ever seen. Using cutting-edge AI, we are going to bring this lost world back to life, turning old engravings, oil paintings, and maps into living, breathing, photorealistic scenes. You will see the glittering palaces, the filthy streets, the smoke-filled cafes, the blood-soaked pavements, and the faces of people who changed history forever. If you are ready to walk these streets, smell the river, hear the crowds, and feel the tension build towards 1789, then let us begin. This is the true, unfiltered story of Paris in the 1700s. Chapter 1. The Seine was the throbbing artery of 18th century Paris, a river that defined the city's very existence. In this era, Paris was home to between 600,000 and 650,000 souls, making it the largest metropolis in continental Europe and a rival only to London in sheer scale and influence. The river wasn't the pristine, romantic waterway we romanticize today. It was a brown, murky, foul-smelling beast, polluted by the waste of an entire city. Raw sewage from thousands of households poured directly into its waters, mixed with industrial runoff from tanneries, dye works, and slaughterhouses. The stench was so overpowering that visitors often held scented handkerchiefs to their noses, and epidemics like cholera and dysentery spread like wildfire because Parisians drew their drinking water straight from this contaminated source. Yet, despite its horrors, the Seine was indispensable, a vital highway for trade and survival. Picture the bustling quays. Timber rafts floated down from the forests of Burgundy and Champagne, their massive logs destined for the city's booming construction. Barges groaned under the weight of wine barrels from the vineyards of the Loire and Rhône valleys, while grain ships from the fertile plains of northern France unloaded sacks to feed the ever-hungry masses. Coal boats from the mines of the north belched black smoke, their cargo fueling the forges and hearths of artisans. Hundreds of small skiffs and flat-bottomed ferries darted across the current, carrying passengers, messages, and illicit goods. The Pont Neuf, completed in 1607 under Henry IV, was the grandest crossing. A stone marvel that spanned the entire river without houses built upon it, unlike older bridges. It was a social hub, lined with booksellers hawking forbidden pamphlets, barbers offering quick shaves, quack doctors peddling miracle cures for everything from toothaches to the pox, tooth pullers yanking molars in public spectacles, street musicians strumming lutes for coins, prostitutes soliciting in shadowed alcoves, and beggar children with outstretched hands. Pickpockets thrived here, slipping through the throng like ghosts. The bridge was essentially an open-air marketplace, newsstand and theater rolled into one, where rumors of court scandals and philosophical debates mingled with the cries of vendors. On the right bank, the Institut de France with its gilded dome, built in the 1660s under Louis Sive, loomed as a symbol of intellectual grandeur, housing academies of sciences and arts. But the river's banks were chaotic. Stevedores hauled crates, carters whipped weary horses, and fishwives shouted their catches fresh from the water. Accidents were common, overloaded boats capsizing, drownings in the swift current, and the Seine claimed hundreds of lives each year. Yet it was also a place of beauty. At dusk, the water reflected the golden light of setting sun on the stone facades, and lovers strolled along the quays, whispering secrets. Today, the Seine is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, cleaned and tamed with elegant promenades, but in the 1700s, it was a raw, untamed force that mirrored the city's own contradictions, vital, vibrant, and vile. Chapter 2. At the center of it all rose the Les de la Cité, the ancient cradle of Paris, where the city's history began with Roman Lutetia. Dominating this island was Notre Dame Cathedral, a towering Gothic masterpiece that embodied the soul of medieval France. Construction started in 1163 under Bishop Maurice de Sully and stretched over nearly 2 centuries, finally completing around 1345. Its twin western towers soared more than 200 feet into the sky, visible from miles away, serving as a landmark for travelers approaching the city. The enormous rose windows, masterpieces of stained glass, glowed like divine jewels when sunlight pierced them, depicting biblical scenes in vibrant reds, blues, and golds. Flying buttresses arched gracefully like stone ribs, supporting the immense vaulted ceilings inside, while gargoyles and grotesques leered from the heights, spouting rainwater during storms and warding off evil spirits in folklore. Inside Notre Dame, the atmosphere was otherworldly, cool, shadowy naves filled with the flickering light of thousands of candles, the heavy scent of incense wafting from swinging censers, and the echoes of Gregorian chants from choirs of priests. Centuries of prayers seemed embedded in the stone walls, from the devout whispers of peasants to the solemn vows of kings. But outside, the cathedral was hemmed in by a dense warren of medieval buildings, half-timbered houses leaning precariously, their upper stories jutting out over narrow alleys. These streets were perpetual twilight, even at midday, choked with mud, horse manure, rotting garbage, and open gutters carrying sewage to the river. Chamber pots were emptied from windows with the casual cry of Gare l'eau, splashing unsuspecting passers-by below. Stray dogs scavenged scraps, flies buzzed in swarms, and the constant din of blacksmith hammers, vendor shouts, and cartwheels created a symphony of urban chaos. Despite the squalor, Notre Dame was the epicenter of Parisian life. It hosted royal ceremonies, coronations where kings were anointed with holy oil, weddings of nobility sealed with elaborate processions, funerals with black-draped altars and tolling bells. Te Deum masses celebrated military victories, drawing crowds from every social stratum. Kings in ermine robes kneeling beside beggars in rags. Religious festivals like Easter and Christmas turned the island into a carnival of faith, with processions, mystery plays, and feasts. Philosophers and heretics debated in the shadows of its portals, risking the Inquisition's wrath. The cathedral's bells marked time for the city, their peals signaling everything from dawn prayers to fire alarms. In the 1700s, Notre Dame stood as a bridge between the divine and the earthly, a sanctuary amid the filth. Today, after the devastating 2019 fire and ongoing restorations, it remains a symbol of resilience, but the medieval clutter around it was cleared in the 19th century by Baron Haussmann's urban renewal, opening up the Parvis we know now. Chapter 3. Venturing beyond the island, Paris revealed its layers of grandeur and grit through its palaces and markets. The Hôtel de Soissons, an opulent Renaissance gem built between 1572 and 1584 for Catherine de' Medici, exemplified royal excess. Its most iconic feature was the 28-meter-high astronomical column, a slender tower topped with a dome where Catherine, obsessed with astrology, consulted stargazers to predict her fate and that of her sons, the kings of France. By the 1700s, the palace had passed to the princes of Carignan, serving as a noble residence with lavish interiors, gilded ceilings, tapestries depicting mythological scenes, and marble fireplaces roaring with logs. Its formal gardens were a Renaissance ideal, geometric parterres of clipped hedges, bubbling fountains, and shaded alleys where courtiers strolled in embroidered silks, discussing politics or court gossip. Servants in livery maintained the grounds meticulously, sweeping paths and trimming roses, creating an oasis of order. But this elegance clashed violently with the surrounding reality. Adjacent was Les Halles, Paris's central food market since the 12th century. A sprawling, chaotic labyrinth of stalls, sheds, and open squares. Here, the senses were assaulted. Mountains of cabbages and turnips piled high, butchers hacking at carcasses with blood pooling in gutters, fishmongers gutting slippery catches on wooden slabs, poultry squawking in cages before their necks were wrung. The air reeked of rotting produce, animal offal, fish brine, and endless horse manure from delivery carts. Flies swarmed, rats scurried underfoot, and the ground was a perpetual sludge of mud and waste. Vendors haggled fiercely, their cries echoing, fresh eels, 2 for a sow. Bargains were struck amid the press of bodies, merchants in aprons, housewives with baskets, thieves eyeing purses. At night, the market became even more dangerous, lit by flickering torches, where drunks staggered and pickpockets thrived. The contrast between the Hôtel de Soissons' serene gardens and Les Halles' filthy pandemonium was profound, highlighting the city's social chasms. The palace fell into disrepair and was demolished in 1748. Today, its site lies beneath the modern Forum des Halles shopping complex, a far cry from its Renaissance splendor. Further afield, the Hôtel de Luynes on the left bank epitomized aristocratic life. Owned by the powerful Luynes family, favorites of Louis Chiite, this grand residence featured classical facades with pediments and columns, multiple wings enclosing courtyards, and private quays for boat arrivals. Inside were vast salons for balls, intimate boudoirs with silk wallpapers, libraries stocked with forbidden books, and servant quarters humming with activity. Gardens bloomed with exotic flowers imported from the colonies, while stables housed prized horses. Such hadels were self-contained worlds, where nobles hosted salons debating Voltaire's latest satire or Rousseau's ideas on nature. Yet, just beyond the walls, commoners toiled in poverty, their resentment simmering like the Seine's undercurrents. Chapter 4. Paris hid secretive enclaves like the Temple Quarter, once the fortress of the Knights Templar in the 12th century. After their suppression in 1307, it passed to the Knights of Malta, becoming a semi-autonomous district exempt from royal taxes and guild regulations. This status drew luxury artisans, jewelers crafting diamond necklaces, watchmakers assembling intricate timepieces, cabinet makers inlaying ebony with ivory, free from restrictive rules. Nobles built discreet townhouses here for private affairs, away from court spies. The neoclassical gateway opened to a maze of courtyards, workshops, and chapels, buzzing with clandestine activity. Tragically, its medieval tower later became the grim prison for Louis V, Marie Antoinette, and their children in 1792, where the royal family endured isolation before their executions. Napoleon demolished the complex between 1808 and 1811 to prevent it becoming a royalist shrine. Today, no trace survives. Science flourished amid the opulence. The Paris Observatory, founded in 1667 by Louis Sive, was a testament to France's ambition as Europe's intellectual leader. Designed with facades aligned to cardinal directions and a meridian line that set French maps until Greenwich's adoption in 1884, it attracted astronomers like Giovanni Cassini, who discovered 4 of Saturn's moons from its rooftop. Located on the southern outskirts amid fields, it escaped city smoke for clearer skies. Nearby, Les Invalides, built from 1670 onward, housed up to 4,000 disabled veterans in dormitories, infirmaries, and workshops under military discipline. Its golden dome, completed in 1706 by Jules Hardouin Mansart, gleamed as a landmark symbolizing royal benevolence. Today, it holds Napoleon's tomb and a military museum. No chapter on 1700s Paris skips Versailles, Louis Sieve's masterpiece 12 miles southwest. Expanded from a hunting lodge into a 700-room behemoth between 1661 and 1715, it featured endless galleries, the Hall of Mirrors with 357 reflective panels symbolizing absolute power, and Andre Lentre's gardens, vast parterres, fountains spurting on command, and tree-lined avenues for promenades. In 1682, the court moved here, turning it into a gilded cage where 10,000 nobles vied for favor through rituals like the king's lever. Extravagant balls, operas, and fireworks displays consumed fortunes, while taxes crippled the peasantry. This disconnect sowed revolutionary seeds. Chapter 5. While streets festered, intellectual firestorms raged in salons and cafes. The Enlightenment turned Paris into a cauldron of ideas. Voltaire's caustic wit demolished religious dogma in works like Candide. Rousseau's Social Contract argued governments derived from the people's will. Diderot's Encyclopédie compiled knowledge to challenge authority. These thinkers, gathering in aristocratic drawing rooms or smoky coffee houses, questioned monarchy, championed reason, and envisioned societies based on liberty, equality, and fraternity. Their writings spread via underground presses, fueling discontent among the bourgeoisie and literate workers. By the 1780s, crisis loomed. Costly wars, including aiding American independence, bankrupted France. Poor harvests spiked bread prices, sparking riots. Louis V called the Estates General in 1789 after 175 years, but the Third Estate demanded power. Tensions erupted. On July 13, 1789, mobs stormed Saint Lazare prison, looting grain amid starvation rumors. July 14 saw thousands besiege the Bastille, a fortress symbolizing tyranny. Negotiations failed, cannons boomed, muskets cracked, smoke choked the air. After 4 hours, the garrison surrendered. Governor Delaunay was beheaded, his head paraded on a pike. Only 7 prisoners were freed, but the fall ignited revolution. The Bastille was razed by November. Today, Place de la Bastille commemorates it, and July 14 is Bastille Day. The palaces and ideas we've explored tell half the tale. Behind grandeur lurked poverty, cramped attics, no sanitation, epidemics killing thousands. From this, modern democracy emerged, libert, galant, fraternate, reshaping the world. Thanks for this epic journey through 18th century Paris, elegance, squalor, genius, fury. If hooked, like, subscribe, comment. Which city/era next? Your hometown might feature soon. See you in the past.